We will resume from where we had left the first time, the Gen 2 first screencast. So I'm signed into the console using code Intelli. Uh, so as usual, this is my Sridhar bar, and two steps away is my uh, code Intelli. Let me just sign into it as well. Yeah, it's signed in already. Yeah. So this was my app. So forget about the app that looks like this. The app was the boilerplate app that came with the Amplify Gen 2 tutorial. This app that you're seeing right now is the one that we will now make. So this comes from the front end helper. So you can see, you can check out a couple of to do entries. So you see that the to do entries from prod are available here. Actually, the last time I tested this, I was resuming this after a gap of more than a month, and the GraphQL resource I couldn't load properly. On digging further, I found that in the network tab that my API was not authorized. Turned out that the default key expiry is 30 days. So I had changed that over here. I had made it to first 1000, it didn't work, and then I made it to 365. After that, it started working. So now let's return back to the console. All apps, candytech, notebook, main deployments. All app, candytech, notebook, main deployments. Now we are ready to set up the local dev environment. Go to console, of course, logged in as code Intelli. Click on main. So click on main and deployed backend resources, and you will have a amplify underscore outputs.json. This is very important for the sandbox. You download that. Ensure that your Candy Tech notebook session is on the right. That is this. This is fine. You have to move the file that you had downloaded to your local directory. Let's rename this as window as setup. Let's do a npm install. Let's create another window call it Watch and Ampex. Another window called Code. Now we can run the local uh, npm dev. So this should run pretty fast. Let's see the app in local 5173. So this is actually connected to your prod, and you can see the prod to-dos over here. That's what I meant here. If you see local 5173, you would notice it having the same to-do entries from prod. This is because we use the same amplify underscore outputs.json. Now we'll deploy sandbox. Now this will create the required backend infrastructure in a dev sandbox using hot swaps and drifts. These are cool pieces of CDK technology. Before going further, I would like to say certain things about CDK tech. Okay, so we'll come here in a bit. So CDK is a cool piece of technology. So it is used for infrastructure as code in AWS. The key abstraction is constructs. Uh, they have scope, ID, parameters that are passed. I found subtle differences in scope that I didn't understand yet. Constructs are the basic building block of CDK apps. They represent abstract cloud components which can be composed together into higher level abstraction via scopes. Scopes can include constructs, which in turn can include other constructs, etc. So I was following the CDK workshop. Its content was old and it created different code. Now it creates a different code than what it used to. Uh, Hot swap, this is the dev workflow that will introduce cloud formation drift. npm watch will give you a REPL experience. It will use hot swap internally for its working, and you can use VS Code for infra wiring and Srimux for everything else. The wiring then can experience TypeScript support. Example, I could trivially use a lambda runtime.node.js underscore 18 underscore x and not 16 as mentioned in the doc, just by introspecting the property values possible in VS Code. So one more thing while at it, I would want to basically make sure that I mention. It's from my great content Sri Media Daily J.md. Uh, There are a lot of patterns, CDK patterns that you can uh, check out for yourself here. So this is amazing, right? So there are so many things that you could do with the CDK that can actually work for your amplify projects if you use Gen 2. So now coming back to where we pushed, uh, this means any additional infrastructure you can drop down to CDK code because Gen 2 supports CDK, and it's best to use VS Code like I've talked for writing CDK code in TypeScript should you need it. Now coming back to Gen 2, AMPX is how they have thought of giving individual devs a unique sandbox. This is super useful as you don't want to be messing prod anytime. Let's go ahead and run a sandbox from this point on. So I won't break this video into two because this is going to take 182 seconds, but I'll talk in advance. Like after 182 seconds, it will end by creating its own amplify underscore outputs.json. This means localhost will no longer have the entries that were there in prod, and now we are ready to make changes without affecting prod because now we have a dev sandbox. Now the next step will be to attach a working closure REPL to this Amplify project. This will allow us to hack React using Helix library. This change will use CLJS Helix. We need to initialize a bunch of variables like what is my current React project name and what is my you know helper project name, ports, etc. So we'll do this. Uh, let's create a window for this project, the React project for Git. So now we are in a dev sandbox. We can check out a branch called say helix REPL and just I will suffix screencast to it. But before that, let me okay. So from here I'll just check out some helix REPL screencast and make sure that my project name is okay. Now let me just see the status of my Ampex still going on. So we'll come back to it in a bit. Meanwhile, we exit from the Streamux sessions, this session. Okay. Then what we do is we create a new tmux session, new directory, and new tmux session like this. We cd into that, then we start a new tmux session for the helper, and we'll call this window as setup. Okay, we will actually get some helper code that already works, right? So for that we need to push. I'll remove the reference directory so that I can make an cd into that. Okay, now I do some git work so that I can get example code from my git. For that I need to eval my agent. I need to clone the source project, which is codeship app 1. I need to clone the source helper project, and I know that the gists were tagged, so I check out that particular tag version. Don't worry about this headless thing. Let the ref projects be in a head detached state. That's not an issue. So we'll pop, and then let's check the status of the sandbox. So sandbox is deployed, and you can see that the new amplify outputs has been written. So now you'll have a sandboxed environment, and you may not be able to, or you will not be able to see the prod entries. So my ampex was showing to dos from previous project earlier. The code was okay, but the app sync sandbox was from the other project. So I had to control C the ampex running command. So you have to be really careful in that you are downloading the correct amplify outputs.json. Running ampex will deploy the sandbox. So let's look at the git status. That is fine. Now we'll do bunch the whole project, we can do a recursive copy for which I had written some Babashka code called rcopy.clj. So let's do that. So it will basically copy a bunch of files from the source project but exclude the ones that you're seeing it here. You do a git status. Okay, you rename the DTS, that is the files to keep TypeScript happy. Now you do a sed on the whole project. Okay, so I need only one new package, so I will not take the package JSON from the source. I'll just install the one that I need.